we're giving you the best insights built on the largest set of requests for help in the world. Right? No one else has as much experience of individuals asking for help as we do. We're just going to set you up for success as best we can because we can leverage that and you can use it in a way that relates to you.
Technology platforms are most often measured by scale and commercial success, but sometimes the impact is most clearly felt when it genuinely changes people's lives, particularly in moments of need. My guest this week is Tim Cadogan, CEO of GoFundMe, the world's largest social fundraising platform with more than $40 billion raised globally to support individuals, families, and communities. Today, Tim leads this extraordinary platform where technology and human generosity intersect, enabling people to help one another at scale. In this conversation, we talk about the parallels of the early days of the internet to the growth of AI, the evolution of GoFundMe, the responsibility that comes with operating on a global scale, and also their ambition to support fundraisers with more personalized guidance and coaching. And we also discuss what it takes to build a platform that continues to evolve while remaining effective in moments of real consequence. Tim was recently named on the prestigious Time 100 list and is widely regarded as one of the leading voices shaping the future of social fundraising and digital philanthropy. This is a fascinating and insightful conversation. This is the CEO of GoFundMe, Tim Cadogan. Tim Cadogan, lovely to meet you. We've been so excited about getting you on. This is a real joy. So thank you, first of all, for agreeing to do this.
Oh, Gareth, it's a total pleasure. Really glad to be with you.
Likewise. So let's jump straight in, Tim. What does good leadership mean to you?
There are many facets to good leadership, but I'll highlight a couple. The first one is having a clear purpose. People want to follow someone where you know where you're going, and you can call that a mission, you can call that a purpose, but it's a clear sense of direction towards something bigger and better. That's the first part. And then the second part is having a plan to get there. Right? It's great to have a big flag on the hill, but how are we going to get to that hill or climb that mountain? So having a plan and then being ready to be a little bit flexible and adaptable in that plan as sort of the plan hits reality. And working with the team to figure that out. So there's sort of the macro objective, there's the plan, and then there's being able to be operational enough to adapt as you work that plan. And then the last piece, I think, is being able to build a great team around you. Because I do very much think that leadership is a team sport, not an individual endeavor. Sure. So you have the right group of people around you with the right differences between them that complement to create a great team. And that is, to me, that the ideal of a team is different skills come together around the same objective and similar DNA. That means you got a good shot.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a word which encapsulates what you said as well. Brilliant answer, by the way. Symbiosis, when everything comes together to achieve an objective. Yes. It's a brilliant answer. I just thought it was a very good definition of that word, so I thought I'd chuck it in. Well,
we were talking before we got on a little bit about rugby. Rugby is an amazing example. Like, look at the players on a rugby team. They're all shapes and sizes, and you need different skills, different ability, different body type to be able to play that. That, to me, is a great example of how you build a great team. And your point about symbiosis.
Yes, that is the beauty of rugby, isn't it? Is that it is a position for everyone, isn't it? For all shapes and sizes, there is a position for you. Now, that's fantastic, Tim. You've had a fascinating career across many companies and many sectors. But before we dive into that, could you please set the scene for our listeners? Who are you and what do you do? And what currently occupies most of your time?
My name's Tim Cadogan. I am the CEO of GoFundMe. GoFundMe exists to help people help each other. We do that for individuals who may be fundraising for themselves or someone else, or a charity. And we also provide technology and software for large nonprofits to fundraise for themselves. And at the root of it, I focus my time and effort on this very, very powerful human desire we have to help each other in many different forms, and trying to figure out how to make that easier and more effective in our modern digital world.
So could you tell us a little bit about the early part of your career? I know you grew up in the UK. What set you on the path that you ultimately ended up following? I know you obviously started off in the consultancy world. Can you talk us through that sort of early part of your career? Why did you pursue the direction that you did?
Well, like a lot of people, I had no idea what I was going to do. I grew up in a small village in Dorset, which is in the south of England.
Oh, wow. Are you from near Bournemouth area?
Yeah, I am. I'm from near a town called Wimbledon. My village is really a hamlet. It's called Canford Magna. I don't think I ever...
Yeah,
you do. It's very
pretty. I know that area reasonably well. Yeah, we used to go there all the time on holiday with my grandparents.
Yeah, the River Stour and it's just it's a lovely spot.
Stunning around there. Yeah.
But it's not a business hub. I don't think I'd ever met a business person. I don't think I'd ever met a technologist. I don't think I even knew what a software engineer was.
Maybe a retired business person.
Maybe, so my family were doctors and teachers, but I didn't know what I was going to do. So when I finished university, I got involved in the sort of recruiting process that the banks and the consulting companies do, and ended up at a consulting company, Boston Consulting Group, and was very lucky to get there because it's a great first job, because they sort of teach you about business, and you would work on, a different assignment every sort of 2 to 4 months. So pretty quickly you got some exposure to a whole range of business. I worked for a cement business and a car distribution business and an airline abroad, and started to see the differences, but also the fundamental similarities that all businesses have to generate revenue, cost, manage people, think about change. And so that kind of really got me into that world, not yet knowing what it was that I wanted to do for the very long term, but very interested in the dynamics of how to run a business, how to grow a business, how to think about the challenges and opportunities that it created.
Yeah. So you worked for Boston for a while, and I know you worked for another consultancy firm, McKinsey then, yeah? So But what got you into the advertising space? And I know you were involved in the early days of search as well. So what took you in that direction, Tim?
So I finished business school. I was lucky enough to go to business school in California, in Stanford, which felt like in a movie, right? Going to live in California, how ridiculous is that? And for a boy from Dorset, it just was unreal. And it was the mid-90s, and the internet was becoming commercialized. It was becoming a real thing.
It was an exciting place to be in those days, wasn't it?
Very, very exciting. So I was in business school 96 to 98. So I had all these people come in, Netscape people, all these people coming in and talking about what they're doing. And it was like, wow, this is like a new world is being created here. No one really quite knows what it will be, but it's going to have many components. And then one of my former colleagues from Boston Consulting Group went to a startup down in LA called GoTo.com, subsequently known as Overture, and essentially got me to do a little internship. And then eventually I went and worked full time there. And they were doing something fascinating. They had invented a concept of paid search, this idea that you would pay to advertise and compete to be the top listing. Ended up spending 4 years there. That ended up being the business model that Google emulated and has become the business model of the whale.
Wow.
And Facebook and all these guys used the pay-per-performance listing model, ultimately became the monetization system of most of the web economy. Wow. Yahoo figured that out and ended up hiring me to come and help them run their search business. And then we bought my prior company, Overture. And so I was at Yahoo for about 5 years, running first the search business and then the search ad business, and then involved in all of the advertising businesses in Yahoo. And it's just fascinating because it's a great example of a marketplace, generating supply through audience and demand, and people competing to present their offer in front of audiences. And that ultimately led me to start my own business, which is called OpenX, which each of these businesses sort of lent into a new wave of technology.
Yeah.
So in 2008, 2009, we realized that you could begin to do something that you couldn't before, which was essentially trade in real time, that you could look at an impression on the web, you could run an auction for that impression, and you could do it in less than 500 milliseconds.
Yeah.
Which means you could do it in real time.
Real time, yeah. And that was just completely unheard of at the time, wasn't it? You know, in an age of billboards and newspaper advertising, that was a paradigm shift, wasn't it?
Complete paradigm shift. And like all paradigm shifts, and same with paid search. Paid search early on, people thought this is a terrible idea. This is very bad. Should never happen. We're not going to do it. Of course, subsequently, everyone did it.
Yeah.
Programmatic, somewhat similar. Lots of big guys saying, we're never going to sell our advertising that way. It's always going to be like quality, hand-sold, traditional. Well, the world changes. Long story short, did that for about a decade, loved it, built up the company, super interesting. But in the late teens, started to think it's time to do something completely different, something where I can learn from scratch again and just go into a completely new industry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I've got to ask you about this parallel. I'm sure you've thought about this before, Tim, but those days, early days of the internet, is that a similar pattern to what you're seeing now in the early days of AI or generative AI in terms of it, wide scale adoption at least? Do you think there's parallels there?
I do, because I think we're looking at something that fundamentally changes so many dimensions of life.
Yes, I agree.
And also has so many unknowns, right?
Yeah.
It has a lot of possibilities. It has a lot of positive implications. It definitely has some negative. Like any technology, it depends what we choose to do with it.
Yeah.
But I think it's possibility with unknowns. That combination, I mean, the 1990s and the very early 2000s before the crash, and then after the crash, things got realer. But the first phase was like, this is changing the whole world. It's amazing. All these different things could happen.
Yeah.
After the crash, it's sort of people got a little bit more, hang on a moment, like it is going to change the world, but like the fundamentals of a business are still here.
They got more practical, didn't they? Yeah.
And that's actually where paid search took off, because that was the point that people said, when I put money into advertising, I need to get return. I need to get a positive ROI.
Yeah.
And cost per click paid advertising did that par excellence. And so
of course.
That's where it really took off. So yes, I mean, there are things that I think this new period is even more transformative than that phase of the internet. And I think the implications are bigger and the questions are bigger.
Yeah.
But there are certainly some parallels.
Yeah, of course. I agree. Okay, let's come back to that, Tim, because there's a few things I want to ask you about first. This is one that I was curious of, someone who grew up in the UK, going to the US. I know you've been there for a little while now. What's the biggest difference in a business context between the UK and the US, do you think?
Well, when you say I've been there a little while, it's a bit more than that. It's 29 years.
Oh, is it that long? Sorry.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So the reason I mentioned that is it's a bit hard to compare now because I've essentially, the vast majority of my career has been on the West Coast of America.
Yeah.
And so I am British by birth. I'm American by business culture. I don't want to make any kind of, I don't have a great comparative set. But what I think is fair is the appetite for risk is higher.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, especially the Silicon Valley. And I use that not just in geographic sense, but like the way people think about betting on really new things with big unknowns and taking risk, I do think is still a standout. Yeah. And I wouldn't just compare that to the UK. I'd compare that to, most places around the world. It's a
European thing, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, even more than that. I just think it's a different mentality.
Yeah.
And people self-select into that. Like a lot of people within the US and around the world move there when they have the ideas, but also the mindset and being comfortable with that level of risk. Yeah. So I think that's probably true.
Yeah. I was talking to a guest about this recently, actually, and we were talking about how a failed startup in your past is kind of a badge of honor in America because it shows that you've actually had a go at something. Whereas in Britain, we seem to be a lot more almost reluctant to risk failure. We're kind of terrified of failure a little bit more.
It's sort of true, but I wouldn't overstate how much people celebrate failure. Failure is still a failure.
Yeah.
I'd say the thing is, if you can fail and get on with it, that's better. right?
Yeah,
The quicker you can do it and learn from it. There are amazing examples of things that didn't work. Like Slack isn't what Stuart Butterfield with Slack. Like the original idea was to be a game company. It failed.
Oh, was there? I never knew that. Okay.
Yeah. But they come up with this way of creating messaging to work together, and that turned into Slack. So that is an amazing example of like pivoting, and obviously became an incredible success.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You spent the more time at OpenX than anywhere else in your career so far. Tell us a little bit about that experience. You were there for nearly 18 years. You left, you were chairman of the board. Talk us through what that whole experience for you and what you learned from that experience going into GoFundMe.
Yeah, well, LinkedIn tells you 18 years, but it doesn't distinguish. So I think I was founding and running it for about 11, something like, and then I've continued as chairman. So 18 years, that would be a lot.
Okay,
that would be a very long time. So
yeah,
something like that. But, I think when you start something up, there's a first period of sort of 2 to 3 years, it depends, which is very raw and existential, which is when we began, it was a small existing entity, but no revenue. You're just like, has our idea got any legs at all?
Yeah.
Right. And that's a very raw period. And, in our case, it was 2 or 3 years. Many companies, it's longer. A few companies, it's shorter. And that's a very exciting, but very nerve-wracking period because you just don't know. Turned out we figured out something that did turn into a real business. So that's a period where you're kind of doing everything from the strategy stuff that I talked about to the most basic things that you can imagine and everything in between. Then you've sort of, okay, this has got legs. Then there's for me was a sort of a next period of 3 or 4, maybe 5 years of sort of really good growth, growing into the idea. And then it was about sort of maturing more than 100 people, growing from there, kind of starting to scale up, starting to have to think about maybe some of the team that you've got right now might have to change. That was a difficult realization because you kind of created this thing with them, but then people just have different skills for different phases. And then in our case, we had some tougher times, which, it's rare that you would run something for a decade or more and not have tough. So there's okay, how do we navigate these tougher times?
Yeah.
What's the next incarnation of the company? And then the company, subsequent to me leaving, but staying on as chair, went through the pandemic and has been through another cycle of reinventing itself and doing a great job of it. So it's almost like you worked at 2 or 3 or 4 different companies in that life cycle.
Right.
Which is sort of what makes it interesting. It's
because of the different phases you were in as a business, essentially, in terms of your scale.
You might be 15 people for a year or two at the beginning, and you may be 400 and something or 500 people later. It's totally different animal.
Yeah. So did you grow? Did you raise? I'm assuming you went through a Series A and all that. Did you, or was it organic growth?
The company had raised a little bit of money early on as a concept that was based here in the UK, and then the investors, Excel in particular, brought me and my partner Jason Fairchild in to sort of rebase it in the US. And start to scale.
Right.
So we did 3 rounds of financing. We raised a decent amount of money, not crazy. We raised another $15 million over those 3 rounds, something like that.
Yeah.
And some of those were very difficult. Like I tried to raise some money in the fall of 2008, which was of course a very bad time. And I think I did 40 pitches or something, and I raised 0. So that was pretty tough. Okay. Like no one was taking any risk at that point because of the financial market. And I was like, okay, so we had to work out like, how do we hunker down and figure it out?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then about a year later, things were a little better. I was able to get some additional support. So you go through things like that and you're like, okay, well, we got to figure it out,
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of bad timing, I noticed you joined GoFundMe right at the beginning of the pandemic. Could you tell us about that period in your life? Where did the GoFundMe opportunity come from, and how did you end up going there?
Yeah, well, they sound unrelated, but starting in 2010, I started volunteering for search and rescue because I live next to the mountains in LA, and I was doing a lot of trail running and so on. I was sort of like, I'd like to do something really helpful, and so I signed up for the team and volunteered and got in and training, which takes about a year and a half and so on. It was just terrific. And it was amazing, and still is, even though I don't get to do it as much, it's really an amazing thing to be able to go out and in some cases we genuinely save someone's life or help them on the worst day of their life. And just got to thinking, well, wouldn't it be really amazing to be able to do something like that, but in my job?
Yeah.
And so got to the late 20-teens. I was like, probably ready, as I said, ready for something new. Just wanted to start learning from scratch again. And had this additional idea, like, wouldn't it be great to learn and maybe do something that's more with consumers again, like I'd done at Yahoo? And cherry on top would be to do something that was help people. And I knew some of the investors in GoFundMe. I knew my predecessor, Rob Solomon. I knew that Rob was thinking of maybe after 5 years, sort of hanging up his boots and letting someone else take it on. So they were running a process. And I got in the process and very, very fortunate and grateful that they picked me to be the new CEO. So I signed up in sort of January. I transitioned out of OpenX and was due to start on March the 2nd, 2020. Everyone in the world remembers March 2020. Yeah. And that first week was really where the pandemic suddenly became very clear to people beyond China that this was a very serious thing. Yeah. And by the Friday, March the 5th or 6th or whatever that was, I told the company, I know you've only just met me, but we're all going to work from home starting Monday. Seems like the wise thing to do. And we all hope it will be, like SARS or something, 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, of course.
Things will be back. Of course, that's not how it played out.
Yeah.
That's how I ended up there. And,
so that was their introduction to you then? You could all work from home.
Yeah, and I'd never worked from home in my life. I didn't know how. No, I had no idea. I had no idea how to do that. I had a lot of people I needed to hire. We didn't have a chief financial officer or head of technology. We had a bunch of hires to make. I had no idea how to hire someone without meeting them multiple times and having lunches and dinners. I didn't know how I was going to do any of these things.
Yeah.
In this completely new world.
It was crazy, wasn't it? It was just an unbelievable time. This episode was brought to you by Be Digital. Be Digital support leadership teams to optimize cost and get more out of technology investments. Be Digital and the team have unrivaled expertise with technology license management and data remediation and are therefore perfectly positioned to help prepare organizations for AI technology capability. And on the last point, Be Digital have just developed a cutting-edge AI readiness assessment, which provides tech leaders with a platform they need to make well-informed decisions about AI adoption strategy in 2024 and beyond. Go to bedigitaluk.com to find out more and get in touch. I wanted to ask you a little bit about GoFundMe then. I heard you talking, you speak very passionately about GoFundMe, Tim, I have to say. And I've heard you describe it to somebody, we help people help each other, which I thought was fabulous. It's a fabulous strapline, isn't it? What drew you to that role with GoFundMe? What made you want to go there? What do you love about the company?
It's more than the strapline. I mean, it's literally what we do for everyone every day. And I'm here in London for a few days and I've met amazing people. I mean, I've just come from a lunch where we had several of the folks who are living with stage 4 cancer and participated in the fundraising event that Sir Chris Hoy organized in Glasgow just earlier in the autumn. Yeah. And a celebration with them. Unfortunately, Sir Chris can't make it because he just broke his leg cycling. It's the worst accident he's had.
Yeah. I read that
in
yesterday.
Wales. Yeah. But I mean, that's an example of we are able to help with something like that. Yeah. To provide the platform and the support to enable people to do something like that for each other. And I happen to believe that we're quite complicated creatures as humans. So we do a lot of things and some of them are weird and not great. But one wonderful thing we do is we do help each other. And we do actually really like helping each other. And it's one of the things that makes us feel best is when we're helping someone else. I mean, 100%. I mentioned my search and rescue experience, like some of those moments were highlights of my life, right? Yeah. Like, getting in. And so what we're doing here is we're just trying to make that a more common experience for people. And we are trying to figure out how do we make that work in an increasingly digital world where people are connecting and building relationships using technology while tapping into a very, very deeply human part of all of us, which is we are a social species, right?
Yeah.
We live together. Everything we do together is typically created. There's very little that is created of value that isn't created with other people.
Yeah.
Even in our earliest history, we lived in groups and villages, small villages and tribes. We didn't live on our own, right?
Yeah.
And that's just, if you think, expand the definition of help, like building a village, damming the creek to be able to get the fish, like hunting in a group. You didn't hunt on your own, right? Those are all mutual forms of help. And we're still the same species. And we'll talk a lot more about modern technology and so on, but we're still the same. And that's a really important part of us. And so we're trying to play a part in making that easier for folks. So that's why I was attracted to the company. I wanted to do it. But I have to say that I had no idea like how deep in the bones it would go. Like we talk about the pandemic, like, and I mentioned some of the things we had to figure out. Those pale into insignificance compared to the challenges that so many tens and hundreds of millions of people had. And I mean, we know that something like 15 million people died. And a lot of people were using GoFundMe for things that we couldn't have imagined to help each other. And so we had to put our small troubles of how we operate in this new world we had to just completely solve those, because we had to be there for the millions of people who are using the platform. And we just like a little bit like, we figure it out. Like whatever it takes, we're going to figure this out, because we just got to make it work for folks. And we did.
Absolutely. So one thing that really impresses me about GoFundMe is how you're able to step in when institutions can't move quickly enough. You know, you can get money to people, boots on the ground in disaster-based, situations. Like we talked off camera about the situation in California, for instance, with the fires. But can you give me some examples of things that the GoFundMe have been involved with where you've had to raise money quickly for, a cause based on a disaster or something that's completely come out of nowhere?
Absolutely. But I want to just clarify one really important thing. We're not raising the money. People are raising the money. Like, that's really important. It's just really important. Like, we're not the principal.
Sure.
We're the enabler, right? What happens is, to your point, people want to do something really quickly.
Yeah.
I will give you the example of LA, because we were talking about it, and it's very near and dear to my heart because I live in one of those towns that was destroyed.
Yeah.
So I was
very
in the
personal
crisis,
to you then,
very personal. And so I have worked on now probably 110, 120 crises since I've been at GoFundMe. But this was the one that hit my town. So to see what happened and how people reacted and how they used our product.
Yeah.
And so just to make that real, within hours, and we see this in crisis after crisis after crisis, within hours, the first people are creating GoFundMes. Often in a crisis situation, it's not the person in the crisis, it's a friend or a relative. We have a saying, best friends do GoFundMes, because when you're in a crisis, it's a flood or a hurricane or tornado or fire, you're in trauma, you're in shock.
Yeah.
You are literally running for your life. So you're not thinking about this stuff, that will come later, but your friend or your cousin or your brother who lives elsewhere, they're thinking about you, thinking, Gareth's going to need a lot of help. And there's lots of friends. We're all like looking at this and feeling helpless. What do we do? How can we help? Like, oh, you know what? I could set up a GoFundMe. And what happens there, that GoFundMe becomes a channel through which all that love and care, worry and support is pouring in to help that person. And that's what happened again and again and again. Happened 10,000 times for LA. Over 10,000 people set up family fundraisers, local businesses, churches, small schools, and lots of nonprofits as well. We had 170 nonprofits activate. Folks who use our platform activate. World Central Kitchen, Salvation Army, Team Rubicon, Pasadena Humane Housing People's Pets. They're all customers of ours as well. They were all fundraising as well. And so the money raised from GoFundMe was often the very first money in someone's pocket.
Yeah.
Because when you're dealing with something like that, dealing with insurance takes a long time. Getting money from the government and so on, it's going to come, but it's going to take a while. And so getting that 10 or 15 or 20 or $25,000 or $50,000 or whatever it was that was raised, getting that is so helpful. And again, it's rarely going to be the kind of money that will rebuild your home. That's what insurance government support is for. But it's going to help you get last month's rent for the new place, the apartment you need to find, or someone look after your pets or groceries. So that's why I got to stress this. It's just a part of the solution.
Yeah.
Right. You need all these other programs. You need insurance. You need the government help. You need big nonprofits. You need all that. But giving a way for people to show that they care for you really, really quickly, the psychological lift from that. I had a customer who's lived in the Palisades and he and his partner, they had lost their apartment, their home, and the church that they lived in. And he told me, Tim, this fundraiser represents an almost unfathomable amount of love for me, because it's a place where all those people who care about me can come and help. And I just had the same conversation this morning with someone who dealt with a very difficult situation here in the UK. And it was not just the money. The money was super helpful, but it was like all that care. And her point when I even brought it wasn't just even for her. It was for her family to see all these people who are supporting her in a different situation, but that's psychological support. So that's what we hope to do for folks.
Yeah. I mean, I know it is an enabler, but it is, you change people's lives. This technology does change people's lives quite clearly, doesn't it? Is this the biggest spike you've seen in a single territory of new GoFundMe pages set up in such a short space of time?
I think probably in that short, we saw a very big spike to support Ukraine. But I think probably in that sort of 2-week time frame, probably was the biggest time. I'm not sure, 100% sure. We've had many big ones, but yes, definitely up there, very big.
Yeah,
and it was, again, people raised over $250 million in a month.
My goodness.
And that money got to people in days. That's the key part, right? They could decide what do I most need in my life right now?
Yeah. Because let's be clear. Some people lost literally everything, didn't they? I mean, some people lost everything from this.
Everything. One of my colleagues on the search and rescue team, Colin, he, part of what we do in search and rescue, if we get called, we're not firefighters, but we'll help with evacuations. So we got a call for evacuations. Now, of course, I was evacuating, so I was already, moving the family. But Colin lived in a different part of Altadena, far to the west, which no one thought the fire was going to make it there. My area was the one that was threatened, right?
Right.
Colin responded to the call and got his uniform on, got his gear, got the truck, went to help with evacuations. Got home later that night, his home was gone. Everything was gone.
Goodness.
So photographer, all his camera, everything gone. And there are thousands of people like that, like Colin. Yeah. And so, of course, we did a team fundraiser for him, but thousands and thousands of people, everything got. Yeah.
Unbelievable. So how is the area recovering?
It's very slow. This is sort of, with any disaster like this, it takes a long time to remove the debris. That was done. The Army Corps of Engineers is in the US who does that. They bring in a lot of contractors. They did an amazing job. They finished several months early. So, you got 6,000 burned structures, 3,000 burned cars. They removed all of that in about 7 months, which is incredible. Reconstruction is starting, but it's early days. And it will be 3 to 4 to 5 years, probably maybe 6 for commercial buildings and so on. So it's a long road, but it's starting. And the community is strong. And I think one of the things that happens to any community that is impacted in this way is they realize how much their community, you sort of realize your community means even more to you realized. And so the level of volunteering and participation is really impressive, but it's a very hard, long road.
I read in 2017 you became the biggest crowdfunding platform in the world, and obviously you joined 3 years later. But what I wanted to ask, and obviously I know that growth has continued.
Yes.
I just wanted to ask you about from a technology standpoint, with all the scale you've experienced in your time there, what technology challenges have you experienced in that time, and what technology challenges do you envisage experiencing over the next couple of years?
Well, like any company that's been around for more than about 3 years, we've experienced, how do we navigate tech debt? So some of the systems that were built early on that were great for a while and now are, no longer ideal. And how do you do that at the same time you're trying to innovate really quickly? So we have been navigating that, I think, pretty well, but it's an investment, right? You really have to think about, okay, you have your portfolio view, how much capacity do you have? You've got to allocate a good maybe 20, 25% for a period of time to getting through that. So I think we've now got through most of that. The other thing is maybe less of a challenge, more just how do you figure out? We are trying to put immense technology power in the hands of users in a very simple, intuitive way. We are using AI and machine learning because we have this enormous database of people who run fundraisers, tens of millions of fundraisers, hundreds of millions of donations. So that gives us great insight into what works and what doesn't when you're fundraising. So what I want to do is when the next anxious person comes and they're asking for help, they're setting up a fundraiser. Many times they've never done this before. They've never fundraised before. They're often in a maybe difficult emotional state. How do I give them tools that are incredibly easy to use and immensely powerful, but almost like a very powerful car? You just have to hit the gas. You don't have to understand how it works. You just have to understand it's going to get you there where you want to go. And so that technology challenge is how do you take that power and represent it and present it to people in design that is easy and intuitive and leads them in the right path. And we are working on essentially a coach for everybody, right? I have a wonderful customer success team who for some of our customers can really provide them coaching. For instance, if the fundraiser becomes really big, it often becomes very complicated to manage, and we can allocate them a person who's a total expert to work with them. But
so a person, not an AI agent then, an actual person.
In a complex fundraiser case, it can be a person. But I can't afford 5,000 of those people, right? Of course. To help.
Not practical then.
It's just not feasible. But I think now with the technology that we have, and also with the way that AI systems can be increasingly empathetic, how can we help give everybody a coach? In this case, a fundraising coach. What do you do when you first launch it? What do you do in the next few hours? What do you do on day 2? What do you do on day 2?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't have a clue in those situations. So that makes total sense.
Someone to hold a system to help hold your hand to like, Gareth, it's okay. We got you. We're giving you the best insights built on the largest set of requests for help in the world. Like, no one else has as much experience of individuals asking for help as we do. We're just going to set you up for success as best we can. Because we can leverage that and you can use it in a way that relates to you. We still have a ways to go with that. But that I think is the opportunity. And I know we wanted to talk about AI and we already are here, but I think what a really interesting thing for us is because what we do, helping people help each other, is all about our emotion. No one's getting a good or a service out of it. They're not getting money. They're obviously fundraising for money. When people help each other, they're doing it because they feel something. Yeah. They love this person. They care about them. They care about their cause. They feel connected to them. It's all human emotion. Yeah. No, and absolutely. So it's a really interesting combination of using artificial intelligence to help people do something and be even better humans for each other. Yeah. Yeah, altruism, isn't it? It does come naturally to people. Yes. I want to come back to AI quickly, but I want to ask you about governance and guardrails, okay? So this is just something that I thought of, it's got to be a difficult challenge for you and your leadership team. How do you dictate which campaigns you support and which ones you don't? Because there'll be a lot of bad
bad actors out there trying to raise money for questionable reasons, shall we say. You don't need to give examples. I'm sure everyone's got an imagination. How do you navigate that? That must be a nightmare.
It's actually, we've got a very well-oiled system for this now. I mean, as I mentioned, we've had millions of fundraisers, over $40 billion raised. So we've sort of, I wouldn't say we've seen everything under the sun, but we are probably approaching it, right? So we have a very clear, simple sets of terms of service. And our terms of service are actually readable by a human.
Wow, that's a first.
Just like you read them, and they're actually, we very, very, very carefully written them. So anyone can read them and they totally make sense and they're common sense. It's a bunch of things that you can't fundraise for that, frankly, are pretty damn obvious, right?
Yeah.
And as long as you fundraise within those guardrails, you're good. And we're not judging you. Some fundraisers may be flippant. They may be whimsical. They may be not particularly worthy in some people's view. We don't decide that. As long as you're within the guardrails, which are very common sense, this is a platform for everyone. Who decides? Our friends, family, community, strangers that you reach on your social network, that they will decide, is this worthy of my money and support or not? So play within the guardrails. We apply those guardrails completely consistently. Increasingly, we use technology now because technology is much better at making interpretive judgments than it was even 3 or 4 years ago. So that's great. And then we use people on top, apply the guardrails, and then let the activity take place.
Yeah.
And so that's our sort of approach to trust and safety. And then, of course, we're also, from a financial point of view, we're looking at, not just us, but our payment partners are looking at the money coming in. Is it legitimate? Are there any issues with that? And then we're looking when the money goes out, who's the recipient? Because sometimes, as I said, it's a friend fundraising for someone else. So the recipient is the beneficiary. The fundraiser is the person running it. And so we need to get their information. They set up a separate account. They share their banking details. We verify all of that and make sure the money's going to the right place. And again, we've done this millions of times with our partners, PayPal, Stripe, Adyen, and so on. So that's how the system runs. And then, of course, we keep learning, right? We keep learning and we're getting faster and faster at that. That's how we do it.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. I've got to ask you about AI. How do you envisage utilizing automation and AI technology over the next couple of years, Tim, in terms of helping you scale and also helping you deliver a better product to your customers, essentially?
Well, I'll tell you, Gareth, we're already doing it, right? We've been building it in over the last couple of years. We've already had users use AI-powered features more than 70 million times. I'll give you some examples. We're using it to help people craft a title. So people will write their story. We can help them clean that up in grammar and so on. But when it comes to the title, people really struggle. We know this. I mean, the news organizations have title writing departments because even professional journalists struggle to pick the title for the thing they've written. Individual folks writing a fundraiser first time, it's really hard. So we'll take your story. We'll pull out what we think are 3 good titles. We'll suggest them to you. You can pick one, you can pick none, or you can take one, you can modify it. We find that 70 to 80% of users pick one of those, use it, and they tend to do better. We will use AI and machine learning to suggest your goal based on the story you write, where you are in the country, what other people have done. People really struggle, like, should I ask for 1,000 or 3,000, and can I change it? We'll ask you what you think your ultimate goal is. Then we'll set your preliminary goal. And if you opt into our SMART goal system, it will move the goal up as you make progress. For example, it infuses the donations on the giving side. We'll suggest donations that can be based on the fundraiser, based on the location, based on what other people have given. If you've frequently given in the past, based on your activity. It's already woven in.
Yeah.
But the next level I touched on a little bit with you is this idea of coaching, right? Taking coaching to another level. That's kind of a next chapter for us that has started, but it's going to get, I think, a lot more sophisticated in what we can do.
Yeah. So would that coaching be for everyday customers like myself who've never raised money before?
Yes,
but would it also
importantly,
be for professional fundraisers as well, working with big charities and stuff like that as well? Is that sort of on the roadmap as well?
The coaching, first and foremost, will be more for the former, for the individual who's never done this before. To build a coach for someone who's already a professional fundraiser, like that's a different kettle of fish. But there's certainly pieces of what that person does. For instance, a lot of intelligence and reporting isn't always that intelligent, is it? Right? It's still reporting. So how do you make that intelligence like, oh, you're doing this top of funnel campaign here versus this retargeting campaign here. Like if you blended them these two and brought the audience, you get a better result. Like what's that insight? What are the 2 or 3 actions you should take based on the data versus here's a report?
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
I think it takes a different form for a professional fundraiser, but I absolutely think there's applicability.
Just on AI, Tim, I wanted to ask you, looking beyond fundraising and GoFundMe specifically, and just more in terms of business and society, what are you most excited about in relation to this explosion of AI innovation over the last couple of years?
I'm actually most excited about some of the medical innovation. And the reason for this is, as you probably know, we see a lot of people use GoFundMe for very serious medical situations. I've met with families in the last 2 days whose children or grandchildren have quite rare diseases, and in some cases have passed away from those diseases. Yeah. And the challenge there is how do you pull the research from around the world and make that accessible to someone, say, in the UK where there's only 50 people with that disease? Well, if you can use the technology to find the common points, you can bring treatment options that may be available but distributed. So the pattern recognition, and the other is just the raw innovative side of it. Like some of the work going on, particularly with cancer treatments, is very, very promising, but requires very, very intense analysis. And I think it could really help. And just sadly, I meet a lot of people who are suffering from this. And I think we will get there. I think we'll get to a new level. And I hope and believe that AI will be a huge, huge part of it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think everything from drug discovery through to, MRI scans and spotting patterns in things like that the human eye would miss. I mean, it's very exciting, the impact that AI will have over the coming years, isn't it, in terms of saving lives, essentially. So that's a really good choice, Tim. Just an inverse of that, is there anything, or what are you fearful of? And, what can go wrong with this technology, do you think?
I mean, I worry about our attention.
Yeah.
I think that, in a way, our lives are where we spend our attention. That's sort of our conscious, focused mind. Like, what are we putting it to? Maybe it's not quite so specific to AI. I do worry about ourselves and our families, how fragmented and unfocused our attention is.
Yeah, especially children. That's something we've got to be careful with.
I do watch my kids who are a bit older now, but it's not what we were designed to do.
Yes, I agree.
It's not what really makes us feel good in the end. Maybe feels good in the moment. Yeah. But I think just really, really being in command of our attention.
Yeah.
And therefore being able to continue to do deeply focused work and get in a flow state and creating really important works, whether they be business ideas or works of art.
100%. That's where the magic happens, isn't it?
Require big chunks of time where you just are distracted. So I worry about that's probably multiple things to worry about, but that's one.
That's brilliant. There's a brilliant book by an author called Cal Newport. I think he's West Coast US based. He's called Deep Work, and it talks about this exact issue. It's a really good read, and there's a lot of eye-opening statistics and facts in there.
Yes.
But it's interesting. Australia banned under 16 social media, which I think is probably a good thing. It's not going to go down very well with a lot of people, but it's probably for the best. And I would expect a lot of other nations to follow suit over the coming years, but which I wouldn't be particularly annoyed about, because I think it's probably for the best, like I said. So yeah, but it's an interesting topic, isn't it? So Tim, I noticed recently, congratulations is in order. You made the Time Magazine 100 list, which is a fantastic achievement.
Was a big surprise, and it's very, very flattering. Yeah, it was
absolutely brilliant.
Total bit of a left fielder on that one, but yeah,
one for the mantelpiece for sure. I know you've got a long way to go yet in your career, by the way. Okay, but looking back now, with the benefit of hindsight, if you could speak to that 21-year-old in the early days of your career, what advice would you give to that young man?
Clueless 21-year-old. I was probably a bit shy back then. So, I just think encouraging that 21-year-old to sort of try and meet as many people and just be curious and find out what they did. I think, when you're early on, still now, like trying to understand what different jobs are. I just think it's a big mystery, right? And I think the way we match people to jobs is it's like a bit of a random, it's just a random, like you don't really know, what do you do, Gareth? And, how does it mean to create content and interview people? Like, what is that? And what is that like? Also our jobs, both of our jobs didn't exist 15, 20 years ago. Like, I mean, when I was in college, the internet existed, but the World Wide Web did not exist. Like this world that I've spent my whole career in did not exist.
Yeah, it's crazy when you put it like that.
Yeah,
but
it's
absolutely
wild,
true.
Isn't it? And that's going to happen again, and it's going to happen faster, right?
Yeah.
So just sort of trying to meet people and learn about what they do and what they like about what they do and what they don't, and trying to pattern match to yourself and trying to know yourself well enough to know that those are things that probably be interesting. Those are things that also, this is important, probably wouldn't be interesting to me. And just being super curious and just trying to get a lot of conversations going, probably suggest that.
That's really insightful. Thanks for that. I know you're a big reader, Tim. We always ask guests, do you have a piece of content or something, a documentary you've seen or a blog or something that's inspired you recently?
You know what? Actually, since we were talking about attention, I recently read a very long Substack, but very good, by James Marriott about reading. So he's a Times opinion writer.
Oh, okay.
And he has a Substack, and he's really developed a really interesting position instead of writing about reading, about attention, about how important that is and how, frankly, sort of under threat it is that we are, as a, generally reading less, reading long form less. I'll find you the link later. I mean, perhaps not ironically, it's a pretty healthy read, and it's got quite a grand title, but actually been quite thought-provoking, not just for me, but my family. I've shared it with my kids.
Oh, wow, okay.
I don't know how much they're taking it on, but I thought it was pretty thought-provoking. It's not work-related. It's more sort of, how do we spend our time? How do we think? How do we develop our opinions and perspectives? And I am a big reader because I think reading
Cultural Capital. Is that him? Yeah.
Yes. There you go. Yeah. So I think you'll find it interesting. And reading is sort of like a way of time traveling and mind traveling and personality traveling.
Yeah, 100%.
That's, very, very powerful thing if you give it the time.
Yes. No, absolutely. I completely agree. And we'll put that on the show notes as well. But thank you for sharing that. But let's finish with this one, Tim. I can't let you go without this one. Can you just give us maybe your top 2 or 3 pieces of advice for fundraising, for general set up a GoFundMe page? How can I raise money for a good cause? What advice do you give for fundraising in a very general level? Write
a very clear story that says who you are.
Yeah.
Why you're fundraising, what you'll do with the money.
On the profile page.
On the profile.
Okay.
Use pictures. Have a great, ideally very human picture up front. You can now add multiple. Add those pictures into the story. So tell your story. That's the first part.
Yes.
Second part, I think most important. Write down a list of 10, 20, 30 people hopefully reasonably well, that you think will have a good chance of supporting you.
Oh, okay.
And then text or WhatsApp them one-on-one. Right. So I would say, Gareth, I'm doing this fundraiser.
I love that, yeah.
Let's say it's for Chris Hoy's tour de force. And here's why I care about that a lot. And I thought you might want to just support it. Just a little bit would be great. And also if you could share it. And if I text you one-on-one, the chance of you responding is so much higher.
Absolutely.
And what that then does is it probably 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe 10 of those people say, I'll give £10, £50, whatever. And that will create momentum. And then your fundraiser will have some support. Maybe it's got 8, 10 donations, and then start sharing it more broadly. If you're younger, on your TikTok, if you're older, on your Facebook, right? Or if you're into Reddit, on Reddit, or wherever it is that you have a community. And then also we put QR code. If you go to church, put it in your church, ask the vicar if you can do it, or your sports team, or your whatever.
Yeah.
Or, if there's a pin board at your local community place or on the pub, then you start pushing it out. And then when people come, they're like, oh, yeah, Tim's Fundraisers is like, move it. It's got 10, now it's got 20. Because people want to participate in something that has momentum. So, good story, realistic goal that we can tune for you over time. Reach out one-on-one and then spread the word. And then last piece of advice, really, really, really ask people to share with their friends. Because what people don't realize and what we can measure now for you is your share will often be worth more than your donation. Let's say you give me £45, which is our UK average, and you share with 20 people. I bet your share will generate way more than £45. So your power as my supporter is both what you donate and what you share. We had a user a while back in the US. She donated $5. It was a Hurricane Helene fundraiser. She shared. She had a big network. She generated $100,000. $5 to $100,000.
Goodness me. Wow. That's incredible.
So those are the steps. Great story. That's yours. Text first, expand from there, encourage everyone to share, and then just keep doing the thank yous and the updates and just keep going at it.
And keep engaging with it on socials and things.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. That's way more than I expected there. That was brilliant, Tim. I've absolutely loved talking to you, by the way, Tim, okay? And
yeah, same here. It's been a great chat. Appreciate it. Yeah, we covered a lot of good stuff.
I've really enjoyed meeting you. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us and your opinions and thoughts. It's been brilliant. So thank you so much.
Oh, cheers. Well, I hope you have a great weekend, and hopefully maybe we can bump into each other at a match at Principality sometime. You never know.
That would be brilliant. Wow, I loved that conversation. That was a really enjoyable conversation. There were a couple of moments in that conversation that really stood out for me, though, and will probably stay with me as well. I think the first one was Tim talking about his personal experience of the Los Angeles fires, which I didn't realize was a year ago. It doesn't feel that long back, but it was about a year ago, Tim said. But I hadn't realized that his own home narrowly escaped the damage. It was literally down to the way the wind was blowing. But I know many of his friends and neighbors were far less fortunate. The scale of devastation was quite shocking. But listening to him describe the scale of the loss and the despair in those communities and the long road to recovery was genuinely sobering. At the same time, hearing how GoFundMe helped mobilize support for people was also, on the flip side, was very inspiring. Some people lost absolutely everything, but it's just a reminder of the good that GoFundMe do and a reminder of what technology can enable at its very best. Okay, so that was just something that obviously stood out for me. The other one to draw attention to is Tim's advice for fundraisers. I won't repeat what he said, but it was obviously very thoughtful, practical, and clearly deeply informed. I've never run a fundraising campaign myself, but this is advice I'll certainly remember, whether for my own purposes or to support somebody else. So I thought that bit was absolutely brilliant. It was a grounded, honest conversation. Tim is clearly a brilliant communicator who really lives and breathes the essence of what GoFundMe are about. And as I've said many times in the past, it's an absolute pleasure to talk to someone who is so passionate about what they do. But thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, please don't forget to subscribe, share, or leave a review. It really helps us reach a wider audience. But thank you so much for listening. This episode was brought to you by Be Digital. Be Digital support leadership teams to optimize cost and get more out of technology investments. Be Digital and the team have unrivaled expertise with technology license management and data remediation, and are therefore perfectly positioned to help prepare organizations for AI technology capability. And on the last point, Be Digital have developed a cutting-edge AI readiness assessment, which provides tech leaders with a platform they need to make well-informed decisions about AI adoption strategy in 2024 and beyond. Go to Be Digital UK to find out more and get in touch.